In Hosea 11, Hosea is really describing and he's really reassuring Israel of God's tender affection and the promise of Israel's regathering from captivity as they return to the Lord at the beginning of the Messianic age. So look at the Lord kind of describing this relationship. When Israel was a child, I loved him. Even out of Egypt, I called him my son. But the more that they were called, the more that they went away. The more that God called to Israel, including the more that God blessed Israel, the people responded with pride, and they repurposed God's blessing to reinforce their pursuit of their own prosperity, their own security, their own self-determination as they sought to mimic other unchosen nations. So he's saying, even as I blessed you, you grew further away. You sacrificed to other idols. You burnt your offerings to other idols. Yet I was the one who taught Ephraim to walk. It's literally like this imagery of parenting and training. I was the one teaching Ephraim to walk. I took them by their arms when they didn't know, even when they didn't recognize it. I was the one who healed them and tended to them. God sought to train Israel with abundant patience and grace, but Israel failed to recognize it and continued in their just determined rebellion to secure their own destiny apart from God, to remove their reliance from God from their whole equation of their existence. But of course, the futility of that is because Israel wouldn't have existed without God's intervention and his help to even begin with. Look at how he describes, I led them with cords of kindness, with brands of love. I became to them as one who eases the yoke on their jaws. I bent down to them and fed them. And they shall not return to the land of Egypt, but Assyria will be their king. You're talking about that Assyrian invasion and even a worse Assyrian at the end of the age, because they have refused to return to me. The sword shall rage against their cities, consume the bars of their gates, and devour them because of their own counsels. The people are bent on turning away from me. I mean, how devastating is that? I mean, God is really lamenting the loss of a cherished loved one, like a child or like a wife. They're bent on turning away from me. And though they call out to the Most High, they can't be raised up at all. They're not. This judgment is something that they're going to have to face as a consequence for wickedness, but more than that, to sift the wickedness, as Amos talked about. But then look at how God responds still. He says, how can I give up on you, though? I can't just hand you over. I'm not going to abandon the covenant and make you like these other cities, Admah, and those cities that are listed there in verse 8 were real close to Sodom and Gomorrah. They experienced God's judgment real similar to Sodom and Gomorrah. They were allied with Sodom and Gomorrah. So essentially he's saying, I'm not going to abandon you like I did Sodom and Gomorrah. You're not going to have this permanent, terrible destruction. I can't do it because my heart won't let me. You just sense the tender compassion and affection of God that just won't let him abandon that covenant. He loves them so much. I will not execute my burning anger. I will not destroy Ephraim, saying, I'm not going to give way to the full measure of my wrath. I'm not going to fully destroy you, for I am God, not like a man who just is fully given over to wrath. I'm the Holy One in your midst, and I will not come in the fullness of my wrath, essentially is what he's saying. They will go after the Lord. I will roar, and when I roar, the children will come, trembling from the west. They'll come trembling like birds from Egypt and doves from the land of Assyria, from where they were held captive. There's both. They'll come trembling from the places where they sought shelter from their allies. In this case, Egypt is representing their allies where they sought shelter as refugees. And Assyria, they're returning from places where they were taken captive unwillingly. And I will return them to their homes, declares the Lord. Oh, it's beautiful, beautiful language right here, saying God is going to shout, he's going to roar like a lion, and God's people are going to return to Israel. Now, interestingly, about these verses specifically, Hosea describes Israel's repentant remnant responding to God's signal to regather from captivity. This is really the signal is the messianic deliverer arrives and destroys Israel's adversaries. Jewish captives in Assyria could not have resettled in Israel due to Babylonian invasion. Like, I have yet to find any scholar that says that these verses 10 and 11, are historically fulfilled, had any real historic fulfillment, because Babylon came and not just invaded Israel, but invaded the southern kingdom of Judah as well and took the whole nation into exile. And there's, partial returning to the land that happens until the Roman destruction in the first century of AD. But there's a permanent resettling of the land that has yet to be fulfilled that I think is really in view here in verses 10 and 11. And I don't find any commentators that are really willing to directly contradict that. And so the doves coming from the land of Assyria are like these, timid, just almost like newly saved, new believers returning from the land of captivity, not just of the land of historic ancient Assyria, but the end of the age final Assyrian, the final captor, the final adversary, that Isaiah is really going to clarify really is the Antichrist. That what's in view here that Hosea is talking about doesn't just end in the 5th, 4th, and 3rd century BC, but it's a end of the age final drama that plays out as well that Hosea is really talking about here. Verse 12 and then chapter 12, verse 1 kind of go together. Ephraim is the northern kingdom of Israel, has surrounded me with lies. And a lot of commentators debate, what does that mean? Well, Israel was given the mandate by the Lord to surround the Lord's presence with continual prayer. There was supposed to be this environment of continual prayer in the tabernacle and in the temple. And instead, since they've turned away from God and their rituals, their temple rituals are just kind of soulless, heartless, just mechanical duties. He's saying this is not coming from a place of real intimacy, because you're doing this ritual while you're also serving all these other gods. And so you've surrounded me not with the praise and prayers that I'm supposed to be due, but you've surrounded me with lies. And the house of Israel is full of deceit. But Judah walks with God, which again, we've talked about, Hosea 1 verse 7, where God says, I will have mercy on the house of Judah, which does happen, like I said, historically. The Assyrians invade northern Israel, but cannot invade fully Judah. Then he goes on, Ephraim feeds on the wind. Feeds on the wind. Most commentators really are upset with the translation of chapter 12, verse 1, saying shouldn't be feeds on the wind. What it really means is they're trying to shepherd the wind. They're trying to control what's beyond their control. And they pursue the east wind all day long, things that they cannot control, that they're trying to claim control of. They multiply falsehoods and violence, and they make a covenant with Assyria. They literally align themselves with the force that's going to invade them, and they don't even realize it. That really plays out at Isaiah makes clear, and Daniel makes absolutely clear that that's not just a historic Assyria. That's a future adversary as well that Israel's going to make a covenant with. And that's that little bit there on the very end of chapter 11 and the beginning of verse 12. Just mentioning that because we're going to come back to that in future weeks. Israel attempts to control what's beyond their control, even to the point of making covenants with their adversaries who will betray and invade them. That played out historically, but it will play out yet again, as later biblical authors will strongly reinforce. Okay,